why am I sitting here trying to feed the 5,000 and lead the team and like have creative ideas and push the company forward alongside Jen in these like creative conversations? And what am I doing? I'm thinking about these damn beans.
Yeah. Beans. All right.
This is so great.
This is so fun. So we're actually at a conference called
We're very much at a conference.
In Commerce.
Yes.
Like I'm literally wearing the shirt.
We just hustled over here. We're like, okay, we're just going to go for it.
Yeah. So a little like backstory while we're here. So I'm Danielle Snelson with Sona Events, and we plan events and team retreats for remote companies. And so, of course, we're here planning this event, and Jeff is here with his company. And last night we were at a speaker dinner event, and we just got chatting.
Yeah.
And you were sharing this crazy story with me about team retreats, hosting their most recent team retreat. And we were like, we gotta record this.
Yeah, we should sit down and have this conversation in, I don't know, like a cool podcast studio or something.
Yeah. I mean, and then crazily, like, ConvertKit, the company putting on the conference, just opened up this really cool podcast studio.
Yeah, so here we are.
So it's like literally serendipitous and perfect timing.
I know. It's so great. And we're just gonna roll with it. You know, we're at our conference wear. We're kind of in that conference mode. Yeah. Like, we haven't eaten much. You know, that's just how it goes.
I've had a banana.
Yeah.
And coffee.
I did have a breakfast burrito this morning, which has sustained me, but like got to chatting, didn't end up getting lunch. And
I know.
Here we are.
You've been talking to everybody.
Yeah, so much talking. But let's just keep talking.
Yeah, so Jeff, tell our watchers, our viewers, who are you? Jeff who?
Yeah, so I'm Jeff Shipley, and I'm the co-founder at Tonic Site Shop. So we're a sponsor here at this event. And we create and we sell website templates and marketing templates.
And they're so pretty.
And it's, thank you. Appreciate it. And it's so fun when we get to come and like be in real human form instead of behind the computer. So anytime we get to come to a conference, I'm always like, this is my jam.
I love it.
And I love events too. So so this is what we only had a little conversation. So we're going to like get in even more. Yes. So I was like that guy who was like, prom king. Sorry, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. I was on the prom committee.
Ooh, you're the prom help.
I was a prom help. Made the prom happen so that the king and queen could have their moment.
You and I are two peas in a pod.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah. We are the people making happen. So that was
I'm
like
not on the stage. I'm setting up the stage.
And so I've like from the like early days of like high school, I was always like kind of like a party planner. But I was in the wedding industry for a long time as a wedding photographer.
So cool.
So I have always just like, every event, I love to go to the help, the people making it happen. And like, I become friends with them.
Which is why we became friends.
Yeah, I was like, you good? Like, have you eaten? Because I know what it's like to not eat because you're doing all the things. Or to like, you're like, I haven't talked to my family for 3 days because you're so in this mode. And so anyways, that was the moment we had last night at this dinner. And I was like, okay, we have some things in common. We both like behind the scenes, and I like to know what's going on. And so when I first met Danielle, she was like, so there's some technical issue. We have no sound. And I'm like,
I forgot that
no power.
Yesterday,
it was no power.
Or 2 days ago.
Yeah. And you were like, the tech guys are doing their thing. And so I don't know. And I just like the insider intel.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you totally came up to me and you're like, no, but like what's actually happening?
And are you okay? And are we okay? Is Jen going to be able, like, what are we doing here? Yeah. And I just relate to that because I've been behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so much, like, for so long, I recently am out of this position at Tonic, but for so long I was the COO. And I, like, helped kind of all these operations. Yeah. And so that's how we were kind of talking, like, I do all the things. So what would it be like for me to not do all the things?
But when you're the person doing all the things and you're like, okay, my team is growing, and we're a remote company, we need to start creating more space for the team to come together.
Right.
Yeah. And then who gets that job? The COO.
The COO and the CEO. We're down there making drinks, and we're planning menus and doing Costco runs Because so Jen and I started Tonic, gosh, it'll be like 12 years ago in November when we first got together. And only for the last 3 years have we like started building a team. And we love hospitality.
Yeah.
We love cocktails. We love food. And so part of it, like, we want to create a certain experience. And so we were like, well, we'll just do that.
Yeah.
And this is what we were talking about last night.
And you want to serve your team and give back to them.
Right.
And that's a really important factor. So tell me a little bit more. You and Jen decided to start hosting team retreats. And I can only imagine that, like, you start building the team, you get a handful of people, and you're like, hey, let's do the Airbnb thing. We'll go to Costco.
Yeah.
We'll, like, pick everything up. Like, we have a whole menu planned,
Yep.
and it's going to be delicious. And it's probably works the first
Yeah.
few times.
Yeah.
And then your team starts getting bigger.
Right.
And then you're like, no, we can do it.
Yeah.
And then it comes to the point where it's just too much. And I want to talk about what is that breaking point? Like, when does it become too much where you're like, actually, I have a full-time job and this retreat is important, but I can't.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the breaking point probably came well before this last retreat I was telling you about.
Yeah.
When it became too many people and too many logistics for, like, me to handle.
Yeah.
And so then we'd have other team members start helping with it who had, like, great event experience or just, like, that very, like, type A, like, let's get it organized. And even then, it's just so much correspondence with the various vendors, with the, like, the travel arrangements, trying to get everyone there on time. And then the other thing that I think where it always feels tricky is you're already spending $10,000, $20,000 like on these events.
Yeah.
And you're like, we need to keep costs low, so let's go to Costco.
Yeah, let's go to Costco.
And we can go to Costco, right?
Yeah.
And like, well, we can bartend. We sure.
We love making drinks.
Right. We'll do that, and but we like want the fancy cocktails.
Of course.
And
you do.
you want the like
And the
homemade simple syrup
garnishes.
and the garnishes, because like that's the experience we want to provide for our team.
And that's probably what you do at home when you're hosting your friends.
Right, but you're like, oh, this
family.
is a dinner party of 4.
Yes.
Not of 15.
Yeah.
And so I would say that like when it came to like the numbers of people, and then it also came to, it would be like right after a launch. And you would go from like doing all of this crazy marketing, all of this big push on product, and then we'd be like, okay, let's get together and rest and retreat.
Yeah.
But me and Jen never rested.
No, there was no retreat for you.
There was no retreat for us.
Yeah.
Because we were hosting our team and very much hosting. Like, one of them year before last was in, like, right across the street from Jen's house. She hosted a lot of it at her house. And then this last one was in my hometown, or not my hometown, where I live now. And it was in Seattle. And so I was like very much like, okay, this is my gig. This is where I live. So I'm hosting. And then we hosted it on our boat. So we went to a really cool resort and we did some of the food they did and some of the like event planning and stuff. But we want to keep it tight. So like we'll do a couple of brunches. We'll do a dinner on the boat. Yeah. We'll do a happy hour on the boat.
Yeah.
So that's when I had this sort of ill-fated idea to do a taco night on our boat, which has a nice galley in it. So it wasn't like the craziest thing ever.
Yeah.
There's the most people we've ever had on the boat. I haven't cooked for that many people on the boat. And this is like in the middle of coordinating this whole event already.
After you just finished a huge launch.
Yes. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And
because you're focused on growing the business.
Yes.
You're focused on getting this product out and getting it in front of people. Like that's really important. That's your job.
Right.
And this is fun and you like it.
Right.
But it's so much work.
Right. And I think the thing that I realize is I like it and Jen likes it and we're good at it.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting is like we have a motto. We actually had T-shirts that I decided to wear Beyonce today because hello. And anyways, our T-shirt says do less but better.
Yeah.
And
I like those shirts.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I like it's like, but it's an idea that still we're like. I think that's why we decided to do a t-shirt because it's like feels like that work in progress. Like we're not there yet where we're doing less. And I think why I would originally like until even just like the conversation or like meeting you and seeing how you guys have been doing this event, it makes me go, wait, I could do less and they could do it better. Like there's the collaboration.
Yeah.
And like I want it to be beautiful and dialed in and delicious and all of these things, but like somebody else can do that and they love to do it.
Yeah.
And actually while I'm good at it, you're better at it than I am.
And then
because it's
you
your
get
job.
to enjoy it.
Yes. And I get to be present with my team, which is ultimately the whole point of us being together.
Yes, exactly. Ugh. So many teams I talk to have this very similar experience where it's just, and it's also in growth mode. 15 is actually kind of a weird number.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's not that many, but it's also more than a house party.
Yes.
And so people don't always associate like how much work it's going to take.
Yeah.
Especially when you want a nice elevated experience. But then they run into this budget situation where it's like this nice elevated experience that you want to go to a restaurant or a hotel or a resort, it's too expensive.
Yes.
And so then it's like, well, I'll just do it myself. And so many people find themselves in the spot of, I'll just do it myself.
Right.
But now you're putting yourself in a space of burnout because you're working crazy at your job, growing the business. And now there's this other thing that's going to consume so much of your time. And say you do it, you have your retreat over the weekend, and then Monday comes, and guess what? You're back to job.
Well, because you've been out of office now for 4 or 5 days doing the retreat, and you have customers to now tend to, and we've all had our out of office on, but then it's like, okay, let's get back to work, and there's like no, you like need a vacation from the retreat, which is kind of counterproductive.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
You were telling me last night about your experience in the galley where you just had a moment, and you're just like, what am I doing?
You did.
Tell me about it.
So kind of leading up to it, I was also have like, it's a sizable boat. It's really weird, like to talk.
How many meters is this?
So it's
I'm asking
50,
you a question. I'm like, I don't know.
I know. Like, is this what they do on below deck? So it's 54 feet. So I don't know how many meters that is. And so there's like a proper galley, and there's like, it has like a full-size fridge, which was like amazing thing. I was like, I need that. Right. So there's like space for all the food. But then it was cold and windy. Oh. So I'm thinking we're going to have this beautiful day. I mean, it was in the summer. So I was like, okay, Seattle did me dirty.
Oh.
And it's cold and windy. And so like nobody's really outside. And I plan on everyone being outside. So I have all of these people like around. And then I'm trying to get drinks going. And it was like batch drinks. And it was we were doing Mexican spritzes.
Okay.
Which is like Aperol tequila, a little simple lime, like nothing crazy. But I didn't have it pre-batched. And I'm sitting there being like, why didn't I pre-batch it? And so then I have somebody asking me like, I'm happy to help make these. What's the recipe? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't figured it out. So I'm trying to do a little light math.
Yes.
Which math is hard.
Got it.
Especially for me. And I just was like, okay. And I finally was like, we figured it out. And then I had somebody making the cocktails. And then we're kind of late in the day. It's like we made chips and guac, so that was fun. And then I was like, okay, it's like time for dinner. And we were going to do this taco bar. And we were going to do these beans that Jen makes that are super good. But they like take a minute. And so we're like...
How many minutes?
It was like a couple hours.
Okay, the beans got to sit,
get that. And
be delicious.
Yeah. And I'm like, why are we doing these beans? And then we started the rice in the rice cooker. And then I was talking with my team members who would like help me put on the retreat. And I was literally trying to get something out of the cabinet. And she's like, what do we do about the rice? And what do we, like, we're having late night sliders at 8, and it's like 6:30, 6:45. We just filled up on guacamole. Nobody wants to eat yet. And also, it's going to take 2 hours to cook. And so I'm sitting, and we're like going a little cruise. We're kind of rocking around, and I'm trying to like also be like first mate and help my husband
Drive the boat?
Drive the boat, get that. So there's duties that I have there. And I just crawled. There was like a cabinet. And I was getting something, and I just sat on the ground in the galley and was like about to just completely break down. Like this close. And so my like team members come out like, Jeff, you good? I was like, I don't think we can. No, I'm not good. And I was like, just give me a minute. And I like tried to pull myself together, and I was able to, but I was like, I don't think we need to do dinner.
Yeah.
I just think we'll
enough.
We'll have late night sliders up at the lodge.
We don't need the beans.
We don't need the beans. But there was a like rice for 15. Because we had started.
We could have rice.
So Jacqueline comes up to me, our email concierge, and she's so great. She does events. She does like that was her gig. So she's like so calm and so great. She's like, so what about this rice? And I was like, I don't care about the rice. Like, I don't know. Like, what do we do? And so we just were like, okay, we have rice for 15. Okay. No meat. No beans. No beans. And I just had this moment like, why am I trying to do this?
Yeah.
Why am I sitting here trying to feed the 5,000 while being first mate, and it's windy, and there's this little sketchy dock, and I'm like, what is it? And I'm trying to be present.
Yeah.
Wasn't able to be
and
present.
lead the team.
Yeah. And like have creative ideas and push the company forward alongside Jen in these like creative conversations. And what am I doing? I'm thinking about these damn beans.
Yeah. Beans.
And how my brain works is like, that's just what I'll think about.
Yeah.
And I told the team going into that, here's the thing, I will sit there and worry about like, is the computer straight on on the booth table?
Yeah.
And that's just how my brain works. So unless somebody else is taking care of it, not only do I spend the time doing it, but I have the mental load.
Yeah.
And that's when the Minty Bee happened right there on the floor, because I had the mental load of too much.
Too much. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you're on the floor. And I think too, if we're not mapping out our team retreat goals, and we talk about, or we do map them out and we say, hey, the point of bringing in 15 people is to create more camaraderie or more relationships, or we need to focus on this product launch or this business activity, whatever those goals might be. In order to accomplish those goals, everybody needs to be focused and available mentally, physically, to be able to make those things happen. So when you're taking on all of these different activities or caring too much about the beans, you're actually going against the goals as a company, because you're trying to overserve your team. Right. And now you can't show up for the company. And so it's like this counterintuitive thing of like, oh, I'm trying to save money, or I like it, or I can do it myself. Right. And it clashes with the business goals and the teams.
That's such a good point. I hadn't really thought of that. Like how it ultimately isn't serving the company well. Yeah. Because it doesn't align with the goal of the whole point of doing the retreat.
Yeah. And now you've wasted time, money, energy.
And time. Yeah. And the team's time.
And the team's time. Because the team probably doesn't feel as connected as you could be had you been spending your important time thinking about the conversations you needed to have between yourself and Jen, but also then engaging with your team to get creative and say, how are you feeling about this product launch, or what is the feedback you're getting, right? You have to be so present for that. So when we try to take on too much or do it ourselves, we're actually like not making the best decisions for our company.
Right. And
how much does that cost?
Exactly. And that's what we don't know. Yeah. Like that impact is and what I found out, like beyond that, like that impact to me in particular in that season of life was like it impacted my mental health in a negative way. I was doing too much. I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg of the too muchness.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're doing too much in a lot of areas of your life.
Right. Yes. And in particular in the business. And that's what it's like, why am I shouldering so much of these things? And a lot of it, I think this is what I've been reflecting on a lot this year, is like, I think it has to do with, it's like a control thing.
I was wondering.
Yeah. It's like, well, I want control of that because I want it a certain way. But the thing is that there are people who can take your idea and your standards and your goals and execute them for you in the way that you would.
Yeah.
They stand in for you. And when you find the right people and you can trust them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be you. And that's what I've been realizing with growing a team. I mean, me and Jen have been doing this for over a decade. And we realize, like, we don't need to be doing everything. Yeah. We don't need to wear every hat. And allowing our team or hiring on contractors to do certain things for us then allows us so much more mental space. Yeah. And again, like that allows the collaboration to happen in a way that, like, they can do it for you, and the relief that comes from that. That's what I would love, like anyone in leadership at a company or anyone, like, you know, at the helm, if you will, and we will. Anyone at the helm of that needs that like relief from, I don't have to think about every damn thing all the time.
And a lot of those things don't matter. Like, for you, as a founder, running a company should be spending 90% of your time doing the things that only you can do.
Right.
Your brain is what's making your company run and work, right? So only you can do certain things. Mm-hmm. So when you grow and develop in your company and you're like, okay, only I can do this chunk of work and I've been doing XYZ, but now we have the funds to hire XYZ, then you got to let it go. Yeah. And then you do grow and develop the next section and you're okay, great. Only I can do this. Now I can release XYZ. Yeah. And then somebody else takes that on, right? And so we can't keep holding on to all of those things, because as we continue to grow our businesses, we have to start trusting the people around us. Yeah. I have to, as an owner, start going, how do I hire better? How do I communicate better of what I need? And what are my expectations for this thing, right? So when it comes to your team retreat, you go, great, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to spend an hour, and I'm going to think about what are the goals and objectives of hosting a team retreat for my remote company. 2, what are my expectations? Like, what do I envision? What do I see? How do I want this to be? Mm-hmm. If I was doing this, what would this look like, right? And so you're like, I want these custom cocktails. I want a themed party on a boat. Like, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. Right. And so you can spend time and energy dreaming about what you want, right? And then you find the right partner who you share these ideas with, and they go, yes, and, right? And then they bring to the table all these other things, and you're just like, oh. And so you're part of the vision, you're part of creating the experience, you're part of bringing your mind to life. Mm-hmm. But then you go, cool, I'm done. I've spent my time thinking about this thing, and now I'm handing it off to somebody who is going to take it from here, and you go back to doing the important work that only you can do. Right. That's huge. Right.
Yeah, and being able to hand it off and trust that, like, this vision that I had for this thing, this piece of my business, for this retreat is in capable hands, and then my attention is here. Yeah. And then when you arrive at the retreat, you get to be among your team and the way that they are. Yeah. But they don't got anything to do but be there and, like, ideate and dream and get to know each other and bond and have those, like, late night conversations. And the other thing I just was thinking about was, like, energy. How much energy is required to run an event and to ideate and to have a conversation and to stay and to lead and to see the quiet team member in the back of the room and be like, okay, we got to get her connected in here. We got to, like, let's bond here. And to tend to all of those things requires so much energy that I would be, like, dead at the end of the night.
You were.
I was.
Literally.
Yeah, just dead.
And you're not helpful to your team. Right. Or that new person that you might need a little extra attention that you can give to them. Right.
And then the whole point is, like, getting the team together that hasn't been together. I mean, we're a remote team. We haven't been together for 6 months, if not a year. Yeah. We had new hires that hadn't even met me. Yeah. I met Jen. We interviewed them online. Onboarded them online. Yeah. To have that, the kind of the sacred space that you're creating be messed up by too muchness, like, is kind of a bummer. Yeah. And so that's where Yeah, it's a kind of a lesson learned. And, I don't need to do this.
Yes. Releasing that control. But now we're talking about something completely different. When you recognize what your role is in creating the team retreat and you're establishing these goals, one, it's to connect. We all know that working in a remote space, it's really important for us to come together. And then once you're there, being able to lead, engage, interact, ideate, create, and you can't do all of the things. And so when you talk about these goals, what has to be true in order to meet those goals, right? Mm-hmm. It means you're being present. When you come to retreat, you are experiencing it just like your team is, feeling freer, lighter. Yeah. Someone's handing you a cocktail and saying, thanks for being here. Come on in. This is what the plan is tonight. And you're like, okay, great. And you're experiencing it alongside your teammates in a joined experience. This is something we talk about a lot, that a shared experience creates a moment, a memory, something that you can't do if you're trying to create the experience. And so, like, going from being on the floor in the galley of your boat on the verge of a breakdown about beans, you're actually sitting, in my mind, I'm like, oh, you're in a lounge set on top of the deck at on your boat, and someone's bringing you a cocktail and telling you when the food's ready, and you're like, okay, like, great. And you're fully engaged.
Sounds so
meeting
dreamy.
those goals and objectives that you want out of your company retreat.
Right. Yeah. Like, that sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
And I think what the limiting belief was telling me then, and even just in this conversation and our little conversation last night, gets me to think, like, that's not so far off.
No.
Like, that's not so impossibly expensive to do.
Yeah.
That is not, or that's something that, like, could become a priority, and we allot the funds for that. Because like we talked about before, what is it costing us to have the leadership team, the co-founders of this company running these retreats? What is that costing in terms of these other things, these other goals that aren't being met?
Yeah.
And we could spend that extra, however much it is, to make sure we have, like, the helping hands to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that I'm like reminded of in the event industry and in the wedding industry and stuff is that those people like you guys have the connections. You know how it goes. You know how to handle these things. You know how to remain calm and not freak out about the beans because you've already thought about that. Or like you know how to pivot.
Yeah.
Whereas like my pivot is panicked, stressful. I'm like, and everyone's like, is Jeff good? No, Jeff is not good. And that's like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But and releasing that and trusting somebody else to do it and do it well, I think, again, like you painting that picture for me of how you could help me with that.
Yeah.
Immediately I had this sense of like, I saw myself with a margarita on the front of that boat being like, yes, the mahi tacos will be served in 12 minutes. Like, what?
Your husband can still drive the boat, though.
Yeah, he wouldn't let me drive. He's like, no, you should not be driving this boat. And that's great. He'll happily drive the boat. But that's like, putting the right people in the right place.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, like, but imagining that for myself, even in this little area of our business, brings such relief. So I think taking that thinking to other things as well and realizing that you don't have to do it all just because you can or just because you like it or just because you're decent at it.
Yeah.
Like you can just not.
You can just not, yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're shortchanging your team or that you're not, like, that it's not as handcrafted or not as legitimate or that you didn't put as much effort into it. It means you said, hey, I value our time together so much that I spent a little extra money to make sure somebody else took care of it. So I could be with you.
I can engage with you.
Yeah. Right, which is the whole point.
Doesn't that speak a completely different...
I just got goosies. I'm like J-Lo over here with my goosies. Like, just thinking about that, like, to be with them. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. And you taking care of the beans or worried about the beans, you're not with them. You're not taking care of them. You're actually doing the opposite.
Right. And the thing is they don't care. No, they don't care about the beans.
No, they do not care. They're like, I'll eat that rice, whatever. I want to spend time with you. You know, something that's interesting is whenever we have a team on retreat, it's a time for the team members to spend time with the CEOs or the executives, and they get FaceTime. And I get to watch like fly on the wall, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these team members want they want to look their CEO in the eye and have a conversation. Just even if it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have the presence for 5 minutes, how does that make them feel, right? And what is that worth? What's the value of that?
Right.
And so creating these experiences to, one, meet your business goals. Obviously, that's why we're all there. But also, two, meet the needs of your team members where they can build a deeper trust, a connection to the founders to do better work.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we don't give them that time, then they go, they don't care about me, or their priorities were someplace else.
Right.
And they're not as motivated to show up or ideate or create for you because you're not giving them the time back.
Right. And the realization there is that, like, you think you're doing all of this in service of them.
Right.
But it's missing the mark.
It totally is missing the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, when you talk about the budget, you know, sometimes I do cost comparisons of, like, what does it actually look like to go to Costco? And I've actually hosted a team retreat for a company at an Airbnb.
Okay.
I went to Costco. I went to Trader Joe's. I rented a car, loaded it up, went to the store, like loaded it up again, and have done all of these things. I was the one wiping the counters at the end of the night. Like, I feel you.
Yeah. You've been there.
I did it once. And then I wrote a blog post about why not to do this and all of those different like facets. And we did hire a chef to come and cook for 40 people at an Airbnb. It was wild. Right. So I totally understand where you're coming from. But also, so I was like, there's no way this is cheaper. And so I took all of those numbers and the receipts and my time and all the things that if somebody was doing this internally, and then I compared it to an experience that I was able to provide for them where it was not that.
Yes.
It wasn't cheaper. It's wild. I'm going to put those numbers together, and then I'll have a link. I'm going to link it here so people can see the cost balance, because in our minds we think it's cheaper, but it's actually not.
Right.
All said and done, it's not cheaper.
Yeah. And there was so much like waste.
Oh, yes.
And so much left over. Because do I know a thing about feeding that many people at a time? You don't know how much people are going to eat. You have no idea how much people are going to drink. You're like, are they? Some depends on the mood. When we were in Mexico, we drank a lot more than we drank this summer. We don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm not some professional caterer who knows these numbers, right? And so I'm just assuming, and so like, oh, we're going to go through this 12 bottles of wine or something.
Yeah.
And my mode is like, I don't want anyone to like go hungry or like want to drink and not be able to have it, or like want a water and not have it. So I like bottle stuff. I still have so much wine shoved in the recesses of this boat from the retreat, and just like, well, you can't just like take it back. You know? And so, I got some wine left over. But like, what am I going to do with all that, right? And the taco, well, I will say, I did benefit from the canceled taco night because my birthday was the next weekend.
You did totally benefited.
And what did we have?
You had a taco bar.
We had a taco night. And I still, though we did not make the beans because I know how hard the beans are, they're so good. Oh, they're like a...
You're going to have to make these beans for me.
You guys, we'll have to like put this in the show notes. The bean recipe. Because Jen's beans are so good.
Bean recipe and cost comparison.
Cost comparison. This is what you guys came here for. I tell you what. But anyways, I still have like 10 to 15 cans of beans on this boat. And I'm like, I need to, like, what am I going to do with all these?
You're just going to have a bean party.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, this is a fantastic conversation.
Oh my gosh, I loved it.
I think we were right that we needed to record it.
I know. I'm so glad we did.
We're, launching this podcast and YouTube channel for Sona Events, and this is a really nice kickoff.
Yeah,
so I love it.
This is such a fun way. And it was very serendipitous. At an event that you planned, that I got to experience, and then, like, now we're talking about these things and how that shift in my mindset, even just in our conversation, I think is like really helpful for other
I love it.
leaders of teams to think about.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. And guess what? Now we have to go back to our event.
Yeah, she has to get back to work. I have to be.
We have a show to run.
We have a show to run. So we'll leave you guys.
I have the best team. I was like, I'm leaving for an hour, you know, and I'm going to go record this podcast. I have no idea what we're talking about. So I'm so glad we did. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And yeah, we're going to do this again.
Okay.
All right.
Can't wait.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.